So let's go ahead and take a look at the unit circle. To be able to go ahead and look at how to come up with the unit circle, we need to look at some symmetry. Now, most of you know that we start out with 0 degrees and a full revolution is 360 degrees, or 0 and 2 pi. If you go halfway, it's either 180 degrees or pi. If you go half of that, it's 90 degrees or uh, half a pi. Or down at the bottom, you should know this. It is a unit circle, so you know you're going 1 to the right and 0 up. Or this one here, you know you're going 0 left and right and 1 up. So if you go straight to the left over to 180, you know you're going left 1 and down 0. If you go straight down, you're going left and right 0, and you're going down 1. So now the first main angle we're going to look at is 30 degrees. If you're 30 degrees up and you reflect that over here, you'd be 30 degrees back from 180, which is 150 degrees. If you take that and reflect it down to here, you'd be 30 degrees beyond 180 or 210 degrees. If you take that and reflect it down here, you'd be 30 degrees back from 360. If we look at that in radians, it's a sixth of a pi. So you're a sixth of a pi up. Here you reflect it over, you'd be a sixth of a pi back from a full pi, which is 5 pi over 6. Reflect that down here, you'd be a sixth of a pi beyond pi, which would be 7 pi over 6. Reflect it from here down to here, you'd be a sixth of a pi back from 2 pi. 2 pi minus a sixth of pi would be 12 pi over 6 minus a sixth of pi, or 11 pi over 6. Remember, cosine is the x. So the cosine of 30, you know, is root 3 over 2. Sine is your y. The sine of 30 is 1/2. So if you take this point and reflect it over here, you're not changing your height, and then instead of going right root 3 over 2, you're going left root 3 over 2, so your x is negative. If you take that point and reflect it straight down, you'd be going left, which is negative, and down, which is negative, so they'd both be negative. Or if you take this point here and reflect it straight down, your x is going to be the same, but instead of going up 1/2, you'd be going down 1/2. Also, remember that tangent of 30 is either your y value of 1/2 or your x value of root 3 over 2. And simplify that, or tangent of 30 is this. Now if you take that and reflect it over here, here you're both positive, here you're one of each, so you know it's going to be negative root 3 over 3. Reflecting that down to here, when you do your y over x, they're both negative, so it would be a positive. Over here, for this one, when you do your tangent, one's positive, one's negative, so you get one of each here. So, we didn't talk about the tangent of our quadrantial angles. And once again, quadrantial angles are where your angle touches your axes. Tangent of 0 is y over x would be 0 over 1, so that's 0. Tangent of 180, or tangent of pi, would be your y of 0 over your x, which would be 0. So looking up here, when you do your tangent of 90, it's your y of 1 over your x of 0, 1 over 0, that's undefined. Same idea here when you do your y over x, you get 0 on the bottom, which is undefined. Now the next main angle that we deal with is 45 degrees. So the purple is 45 degrees up. So if I reflect that over here, I'd be 45 degrees back from 180. 180 minus 45 is 135. If I take that and reflect it down, I'd be 45 degrees beyond 180. 180 plus that 45 is 225. If I take that and reflect it straight down here, I'd be 45 degrees back from 360, which is negative 315 degrees. If I'm looking at 45 in terms of radians, that's a fourth of a pi. So here I'm a fourth of a pi up. So when I reflect it over here, I'd be a fourth of a pi back from 3/4. I mean, from full pi. A 1/4 of a pi back from pi, which is 3/4 of a pi. Or if I reflect that down here, I'd be 1/4 of a pi beyond pi, which puts me at 5 pi over 4. Reflecting that one from here down to here, I'd be 1/4 of a pi back from 2 pi, which would be 2 pi minus 1/4 of pi, or 8 pi over 4 minus 1/4 of pi, or 7 pi over 4. When we're looking at the coordinates, you should remember that the sine and the cosine of 45, or pi over 4, are both the same, or √2 over 2. So when I take these and reflect them over to here, I'm at the same height, but instead of going right √2 over 2, I'm going left √2 over 2, so your x is negative. Taking that point, reflecting it straight down, I'd be going left and I'd be going down, they'd both be negative. Taking this point here, reflecting it straight down here, my x is the same, but instead of going up, which is positive, I'd be going down, which is negative. When I'm looking at the tangent, remember tangent is y over x. They're both the same here, so you get 1. Looking at our tangent over here on this one, one's positive, one's negative, so it's -1. But they're the same value, just one positive, one negative. Down here, they're both negative, so a negative over a negative is a positive. Over here for my tangent, one's positive, one's negative, so I divide, I get a -1. Now we'll have to go ahead and take a look at the next main angle, which is 60 degrees. So the blue is 60 degrees up here, so when I reflect it over here, I'd be 60 degrees back from 180. 180 minus 60 is 120. If I reflect that straight down here, I'd be 60 degrees beyond 180. 60 degrees plus 180 is 240. If I take my 60 degrees here, reflect it down to this one, I'd be 60 degrees back from 360, or 300 degrees. In terms of radians, 60 degrees is 1/3 of a pi. So here I'm 1/3 of a pi up, so when I reflect it over here, I'd be 1/3 of a pi back from a full pi. 1 pi minus 1/3 of a pi is 2/3 of a pi. Taking that and reflecting it straight down, I'd be 1/3 of a pi beyond pi, so it'd be pi plus 1/3 of a pi, or 4 pi over 3. Over here, if I take this and reflect it down, I'd be 1/3 of a pi back from 2 pi, so it'd be 2 pi minus 1/3 of a pi, or 6 pi over 3 minus pi over 3, so that's 5 pi over 3. Remember, cosine is x, the cosine of 60 is 1/2. Sine is y, the sine of 60 is √3 over 2. So if I take that point and reflect it over here, my x would be negative, my y would still be positive. Taking that point and reflecting it down here, they would both be negative. Taking this point, reflecting it straight down here, my x would still be positive, but my y would be negative because I'm going down. When I do tangent of 60 degrees, you can either remember that that's √3, or you can remember it's your y over x, √3 over 2 divided by 1/2. Simplify that and you still get √3. When I take this and reflect it over here, one's positive, one's negative, so my tangent would be negative √3. When I take that and reflect it down here, once again, they're both negative, so a negative over a negative would be a positive. And my one last one here, when I do my tangent here, I have one positive, one negative, so it would be negative √3.